Look, we all miss a Newcastle, and if you're anything like me, I cannot wait for the football season to restart. But the World Cup's here, and I've got some Newcastle players and different things to look out for whilst you're watching it, so stick around. Welcome back to Black and White Banter, Newcastle fans. If you thought I wasn't going to be posting videos because it's the World Cup, you were wrong. But hey, my God, if you're anything like me, I am already... We're a week now without football. I'm recording this video on a Sunday. My Saturday yesterday was just awful. There was no dancing in the shower at the local hero, no strutting my stuff over to St James's Park, no messages in the group chat about team selections, all of that stuff that we miss. Not just the football on the pitch, but everything that goes with it. I can't wait for the football season to return. I feel like this World Cup is more of a hindrance because it's stopped the football that we like rather than being bonus football like when it's in the summer. And I'm not, if you're anything like me, I don't know, let us know in the comments, Newcastle fans, I'm not international focused. I'm not. I will take Newcastle winning the smallest of trophies, maybe the Europa Conference League. That's probably the smallest one I can maybe think of out of all the cups available, over England winning any tournament, Euros, World Cup. I really would. It's club over country because I just don't feel like the club has that personal touch. But here we are, it's a World Cup, and don't get me wrong, there is football on every day. So, 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, we can watch football until we can't keep our eyes open anymore. So that's the positive of a World Cup. And those Newcastle fixtures will come round quicker than we know it if we just stop thinking about it. But it's difficult. I miss Eddie Howe's face already. But hey, I'm here today. Oh, and by the way, Newcastle fans, if you are new and you've just stumbled across this video, please drop down, give us one of them. Goes a very long way. Get us across all social media at Black and White Banter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, content every day. And if you like this video and you stick around for it and you want to hit that subscribe, you'll be notified every single time I post one. So please whack that subscribe. The road to 1,000 subscribers is on. I'm not too far off. Well, a few to go yet. But I'm here today, and this video is to talk about Newcastle-related factors to look out for at the World Cup, whether it be scenarios, team selections, and actually players. So I'm going to dive straight in and talk about some Newcastle players to look out for. And of course, I'll start with England. Never since I was probably a little kid can I remember this many England players being from Newcastle in a tournament. 3. We have 3 players in the England squad. That's amazing. It does pick up my interest a bit more in watching our country's games. And yeah, first up, Nick Pope. Unfortunately, I don't think Nick Pope's going to get much game time at this tournament. Jordan Pickford, say what you want about him. Yes, we have a lot of jokes. Yes, we grief his little arms. Yes, he's from Sunderland. But for country, he hasn't really let England down on too many occasions. He's won his penalty shootouts in tournaments before. Southgate seems to love him. His distribution with his feet, I think, is what makes him better than Pope in Southgate's eyes, how he likes to play. So I don't think Nick Pope, unfortunately, is going to get much actual time on the pitch. But you never know, do you? Pickford could get injured after 5 minutes of the first game on Monday against Iran. And then suddenly I think Pope is probably Southgate's number 2. Before Ramsdale, Pope comes in. But I'm delighted to see him in the squad. It can only be good for our players to be experienced and being around some of the best in the world at a tournament like a World Cup. So that's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, he's been an absolute rock for us. And Gareth Southgate has a very good goalkeeper there if he needs to call upon him. And he's just won us a penalty shootout recently as well, don't forget, against Crystal Palace. Not bad going into a tournament at all. Next up for England, Kieran Trippier. My God. The man who can do no wrong, one of the best defenders I have seen in my lifetime in a Newcastle shirt. Now, Kieran Trippier, for me, has to start this tournament for England. He has to. He's in the form of his life. He said that himself. He's fantastic going forward. He's set pieces. I mean, look at his chances created in the Premier League. He's actually one of the highest in the league, and he's a defender. At the back, solid as a rock. Organisation, his leadership. He's captained Newcastle to 3rd pretty much the whole season because obviously Lascelles doesn't start for us. He's a no-brainer. He has to go into that team. Trent Alexander-Arnold, yes, he's got a good right foot. He has not been in any kind of form or probably his headspace because of the criticism he knows he's been getting to be starting a tournament for us. And I still think Trent, as wonderful as that right foot might be when it wants to be, is not very good defensively. So for me, Trippier has to start. And let's just hope he gets a free kick opportunity at the edge of the box, Newcastle fans. Kieran Trippier over the wall. And last but certainly not least for England is Callum Wilson. I was absolutely over the moon when Callum Wilson was announced in this World Cup squad. Fully deserved. He's been in great form for England. He offers us something totally different to Harry Kane, in my opinion, which is why I think Callum Wilson will get some game time at this tournament. He's got pace to burn, which I don't think Harry Kane has. Harry Kane's probably dropped a little bit deeper the more his career's gone because of his time at Spurs. He likes to ping balls around and set up, have players running off him a little bit. Callum Wilson's just your out-and-out striker, always on the shoulder, always running channels, a fox in the box, great with his head, great shot on him, and I really do hope he gets some game time, and I think he will. I actually think Harry Kane and Wilson can play together because they're so different, but I don't think Southgate would ever entertain that idea. So let's just hope. I mean, imagine watching Callum Wilson score a tournament for us and then come back with that big grin on his face that he pulls. It would just be amazing, and let's just keep our fingers, toes and everything crossed that those hamstrings hold up during this tournament. My God, because that is the last thing we need, isn't it? Going into these run of games just as the fixtures restart in December, January. So yeah, so those are the 3 England players that make the tournament for me more enjoyable to watch, because there's players that I feel like are my own, like watching your own kids play the tournament when you watch your club players. Next up is our very handsome, very reliable centre-back, Fabian Schär. He's going to be playing at this tournament for Switzerland. He's in a group with Cameroon, Brazil, which I'll touch on in a second, why that's even more interesting, you might have guessed, and Serbia as well. So Fabian Schär has been outstanding for us, probably the form of his Newcastle career, and he's taken some great form into that tournament, which I'm sure the Swiss fans and other players and management will be over the moon about. He does play on occasion in midfield for Switzerland, which is interesting, but generally speaking, and I expect him to play at this tournament as part of a back 3 at centre-back. So yeah, that's a fantastic player to keep an eye out for, to see how he does, and especially that Brazil game on the 28th of November, because who's he going to be playing against? Yeah, the magic man in the middle. So Bruno and Fabian Schär are going to be playing against each other at this tournament, which just adds another bit of Newcastle spice. Bruno playing for Brazil, incredible. What a season he's had for Newcastle. Some fans are telling me that he's one of the best midfielders they've ever seen in their lifetime, and I'm talking about 50, 60-year-old men who've seen much more football for Newcastle than I have. So he's a one we all going to be keeping an eye out for. Only frustrating thing is he doesn't actually start for Brazil, believe it or not, at the moment. I expect him to be more of an impact substitute at this tournament unless they rotate the squad a little bit. It's the likes of Casemiro and Fred who start in midfield for Brazil, so that's frustrating, but I'm sure if he does get an opportunity, which he normally does, he's already racked up goals and assists for Brazil, he will showcase, even if he gets 20-minute cameos in the group stages, what he can do, because he's going into this tournament full of beans, full of fire, full of assists, full of goals. And yeah, I cannot wait to see Bruno put on the shirt of Brazil. I think he's probably making Brazil my second team if I could see any team win this tournament, just because of how much I love the kid. So long may that continue, and I hope to see a decent amount of minutes of him playing for Brazil. Wouldn't that be amazing? And lastly, a player that you maybe wouldn't think of to watch at this tournament, a little bit outside the box, Garang Kuol. We signed him about a month and a half ago from the Mariners in Australia. He's a young centre forward. He's just made the Australia World Cup squad. He's only just made his debut for Australia, but because he's been banging in that many goals of decent standard in the Australian League, they couldn't leave him out. He's got pace to burn. He's a tricky customer. He's obviously still very raw and still a lot to learn, but for him, signing for us to go straight into a World Cup squad can only be good for the kid's development. And apparently, I don't know the ins and outs of this, him playing some minutes at this tournament might actually speed up his visa process to come to Newcastle sooner. I'm not sure how that works. Please, if anyone in the comments knows, let me know. If anyone watching this, please drop in the comments. So Garang Kuol is that wild card to keep an eye out for. He is going to be playing for us eventually. Will he get much game time for Australia? I don't know. Certainly, I think as an impact sub, and he's done that for Australia when he's played recently, but he has been setting that league alight in Australia for the Mariners, and he is going to be playing for us. So that's your wild card to look out for. Now, coming away a little bit from Newcastle, a few players and scenarios that I'm going to be looking out for this tournament as a Newcastle fan. Firstly, I'm going to be keeping an eye on James Maddison. You probably expected me to say that one. We went after him in the summer. Bids turned down. He has made the World Cup squad for England, which is great. He's picked up an injury, so he's not actually going to feature in the first game against Iran, I don't think. But I am fascinated to see what sort of game time he gets, how he does for England, and whether his stock rises. Because are we going to go back after him in January? I think we'll definitely be looking to go for him in the next 6 months, because Eddie Howe, when he likes a player, he sticks with that player. And I think James Maddison's form this season has probably only amplified Eddie Howe's interest. So keep an eye out how James Maddison does if he gets much game time for England. Next up for me, I'm not going to look at every single player Newcastle have been linked with. I'm not. I'm just going to name a few in the defensive midfield area that the papers and last summer we were linked with as well. So the first one up, Ajax midfielder Edson Alvarez. We were linked with him heavily in the summer. He's a defensive midfielder, which a lot of Newcastle fans I know think we need as another cog in our team to maybe push Bruno on a little bit further. A really solid out-and-out defensive midfielder to break play up. He's been smashing it for Ajax. He's a bit of a pin-up boy for Mexico. He's in a group with the likes of Argentina. So that's probably someone you'd be watching anyway. So make sure you look out for Edson Alvarez. Were we seriously after him in last summer? I don't know. But because he's someone I've never watched play before, I want to see whether he looks the business. He's only 25 years old. So keep an eye out. Mexico, and they do have Argentina in the group. So that's a nice test for him as well. The other one is William Carvalho. He's been more recently linked to Newcastle. He's a lot older, which is why it surprises me that we linked with him at the age of 30. But he is playing for Portugal, another defensive midfielder. It's hard to talk about anyone for the Portugal squad other than Cristiano Ronaldo, because that's what Cristiano Ronaldo likes. But yes, there is someone else to look out for in that team, William Carvalho. I think we've been linked with him for years now, and he's popped up again, but I'm not sure whether I see Eddie Howe going for a 30-year-old, truth be told, but just someone to keep an eye out when you are watching the group stages. Coming away from players a little bit, Holland's defence. Now, Holland, Louis van Gaal decided not to take Sven Botman, who we know has been absolutely outstanding for Newcastle. Didn't take him, baffled as to why, so I'm curious to see how their defence holds up at this tournament. They do have a luxury, you've got your Van Dijks, your De Ligts. They've got a couple of others. They do have a luxury of centre-backs, but Sven Botman, for me, is one of the best Newcastle defenders I've seen in my lifetime so far. And again, I'm just basing off what I've watched of him so far, and he's still so raw, still learning the league, and he's only 22. When they didn't take him, I was gobsmacked, I really was. It can only be our gain because his stock doesn't rise, whatever. But I'm curious to see how their defence does, because it'll be hilarious if they look a little bit shaky in that centre-back department. And I think every Newcastle fan will be giving one of them to Louis van Gaal. So that's another thing to look out for. And I just think, to wrap up this video, I think you've got to think about the positions Eddie Howe might want to strengthen in January. We have now a bank balance where we can watch who the best players at the tournament are, and Eddie Howe can probably put in a call to Amanda Staveley and co and say, do you know what, I want him in my team because he looks fantastic. He looks the sort of profile of player that could really send us up a notch. So we have that luxury now. So I'll certainly be looking at wingers, because I think Eddie Howe still does want a winger. Diaby, who we were linked with, hasn't even made the France squad. So that's someone who I would have talked about, but he's not even going to be playing. And I think a defensive midfielder or central attacking midfielder like your James Maddison, that's another one that I think Eddie Howe will be keeping a solid eye on. Is he maybe wanting more defenders, maybe cover for Kieran Trippier? I don't know. You can speculate this. But those are the couple of players I was keeping a specific eye on because of previous links, but also setting my net afield a little bit further. I'd be looking more at wingers and central players. So please, Newcastle fans, let me know your thoughts on this tournament, what you'll be looking out for, maybe players, maybe Newcastle-related players. Let us know in the comments, please, what you think of this World Cup, how much you're missing Newcastle, and what maybe you think I should be looking out for. Maybe I've missed someone. Maybe I've missed a key Newcastle-related factor. Let me know and whack that like button. These likes go a long way in getting me into the Newcastle United algorithm atmosphere of YouTube. And if you've lasted this long, you may as well hit the subscribe. I am going to keep with the Newcastle content during this long period till Eddie Howe and the boys are back on the playing field. So make sure you do hit that like and that subscribe, because you will be notified when I post. I'll see you on the next video, Newcastle fans. Enjoy the World Cup. Enjoy England's first game, if that's where you're watching this video from. I would normally finish the video with "Away the lads." Should I finish it with "It's coming home, it's coming home"? No, I can't. I'm club over country. Away the lads. I'll see you on the next video.